They arrived in search of a better life, but their journey came to this: pepper spray, water cannon, and mass arrest. Riot police detained around 100 foreign nationals after breaking up a sit-in protest at the UN refugee office in Cape Town. The migrants, mainly from other African countries, had been demanding that the UN relocate them. They claim they are no longer safe in South Africa after a surge of Afrophobic attacks.
We're here in the church where about 300 people are seeking shelter, refugees. You can see it is completely overcrowded. So many people at the space. It is not smelling very well. Of course, the stress level is very high, the tensions are very high, and people have experienced very terrible things on Wednesday when there was a crackdown on their protests and the police was attacking them. We just talked to Sylvie, one mother who was a witness of what happened, and she actually got injured herself.
I'm sorry, I feel that anger, that's the hatred. Because what happened yesterday is the 5th xenophobic attack in South Africa, because that was done by the government. Because that is inhumanity that I saw with my eyes yesterday. If a policeman can separate a mother and a child, there is no future for my children in this country. I want to go out.
So where do you want to go then with the family?
Anywhere, as long as we are out of this country. A place that where we're going to be safe, where we're going to feel that we've been recognized as human beings, not like cockroaches or not like chicken. Because we are not chicken to be slaughtered every day.
Would you consider going back to Burundi?
Fine, thank you. There's no better place than home. And then it's because I was forced to leave my country. I did not choose to come to South Africa. I did not wake up one day and say, let me plan to go for holiday to South Africa. I was forced to leave my country. And then UNHCR and this country knows that it's not peace yet. But if there was a peace, I'd rather go back. But because there's no peace, that's why I tell them to look for a place where I can have peace.
Burundian refugee Sylvie speaking to Adrian Krish there. Now, earlier I spoke to Gareth Newham, head of the Justice and Violence Prevention Program at the Institute for Security Studies. I began by asking him whether the police's use of force was proportionate.
Well, what we saw was quite distressing, and certainly we do have a problem generally in South Africa with a disproportionate use of force. But I think from most of what I've seen in this instance, one needs to understand that there for many days have been negotiations trying to get people to leave that area. They were there illegally. There was a court order eventually instructing people to leave, and the police are only called in as a very last resort. And even the police tried to negotiate and get people to leave peacefully. So only once all possible means of getting people to leave peacefully had been utilized did the police start using direct force to try and clear that area, and eventually arrested 100 people.
Now, you said that the police have been using force for some time now. What's the problem exactly? Lack of proper training, or is there a deeper problem here?
Well, there is a deeper problem in that the police believe that using force is a necessary part of their job, and I think in many instances they tend to use too much force. When it comes to public order policing, the units that were involved in this particular operation, they do not have enough resources. They need around 12 to 13,000 trained officers, and currently we have around 5,600. And those officers have seen a big increase of public violence and disruptive incidents that they have to respond to by about 140% in the last 5 years. So they are under a lot of strain, and in many cases that means that they might be too quick to use force to solve these situations quickly, rather than a more protected and less forceful way of dealing with it.
Well, that is one type of problem, but you wrote in your research that many police officers hold Afrophobic attitudes. Could that have played a role here?
It is true that in my research I have found police officers do hold xenophobic and Afrophobic attitudes. In this situation, however, I think given that there were so many journalists, given that there was a large number of people from the public who are sympathizing with those migrants and those refugees, that they would have been very careful to try and act as much as possible within the procedures. So I did not see instances, there may have been one or two where there was a bit too much force being used, but I'm not sure in this instance whether that was the cause of it.
Okay. Now, public violence in South Africa is rising, and foreign nationals are particularly vulnerable. What can and should be done quickly?
Well, the government has rolled out a national action plan to combat racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and other intolerance. And that's a number of interventions. So it's partly policing, but I think we need to shift the attitudes of people living in South Africa if we really want to solve this problem sustainably.
Garrett Newham, head of the Justice and Violence Prevention Program at the Institute for Security Studies in Pretoria. Thank you.